Hello, y'all. It is Junebug again from Genesis and Junebug. Welcome back to another true crime time, because I like how it rhymes. Speaking of, this guy's name is Rhyme. I think he appeared last year in some true crimes I did around the holidays. His name is literally Rhyme. They give him names. He's from Target. Can you see? Rhyme. But he's a Derbs, and he's gonna chill with us. And then we also have Phil, the holiday bear, that Genesis got me. Give Bip and Philip a break. They've done a lot of hard work for this channel. Speaking of, thank you for the, I don't want to say surge, because nothing with us is surging. We're about at 230 subscribes when I'm filming this, and thank you so much. Thank you for the support, and you don't have to stay subscribed. And you don't have to stay subscribed if you don't want to. We get it. But anyway, we are here for another true crime. So not good news. Side note, I looking at my notes already, and I'm confused. What did I mean? Okay, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out. Also, side note, my hat is from my aunt's shop Mother Hubbard. It's got little hearts. It's very cute. I posted it on our Instagram, tagged her so you could go see her stuff, but I'll try to remember to have her link below. Maybe our Instagram too. Anyway, today we are talking about Bobby Greenlease. Again, it is another case I have not heard of, but there's so many horrible things that happen in the world, I can't possibly know them all. And this happened September 28th of 1953. And unfortunately, he was 6. Because I know some ages, if it's bother people, if it's a really young person, this way, if it makes them uncomfortable, they can click out now. Just so you know. And this takes place in Kansas City area, Missouri. And again, the small silver lining is it is a solved case. And now I always start the true crimes if there are pop culture references. I try to say those to see if anyone's seen it, shows or read the books. So this is what we're talking about. This case was a subject of an episode of A Crime to Remember, an episode of Deadly Women, and is mentioned in an episode of Ghost Adventures. No ghosts are involved in the story, by the way. So, take that for what you will. So let's start. So Robert, aka Bobby, Cosgrove Greenlease Jr. was born on February 3rd of 1947 to 65-year-old Robert Greenlease Sr. Makes sense considering he's a junior. And Virginia Pollock Greenlease, who was 38 years old. Nice to see another age gap couple out there. They had a 27-year age gap, a lot bigger than me and Genesis's. But they had a 27-year age gap, which is just a fact. It has nothing to do with this. And side note, Virginia was Robert's second wife. The first wife was named Betty. And Bob and Virginia, who's Bobby's mother, they were married in 1939. But Robert Sr., you may have heard of the dad. I have not, but maybe more in Missouri area you probably would have. He was a multi-millionaire car dealer and entrepreneur. I could not say entrepreneur. And he made a fortune by introducing General Motor vehicles to the Great Plains states. So that's why I might not have heard of him. In Michigan, where we got so many car people here. But in the Great Plains states, you might be like, oh, that guy. But he owned dealerships from Texas to South Dakota. He had money. But it was said they were very dedicated to their son, Bobby. I also finally mentioned he did have a sister. I think it was Virginia Jr. I believe she was older, but she did not really have anything to do with the case. She's fine. Well, minus the what happens. You know what I mean. I didn't see mention of her until I was nearly done with my research. I'm like, oh, they couldn't have mentioned her sooner. But he does have a sister, Virginia Jr. And they also said Bobby was very trusting, which I feel like most kids around that age are. Not much has gone wrong in their life yet. It's sad I have to say yet. But on September 28th of 1953, Bobby was pulled out of class, and he went to a private Catholic school called Notre Dame de Sion, D-E-S-I-O-N, De Sion. He was pulled out of the class of this private school by an aunt who was very upset because Virginia, his mom, had just had a heart attack and was at St. Mary's Hospital down the road. It was close to the school. I feel like something called St. Mary's would be close to a Catholic school. Yeah. So he went with his aunt because he's concerned about his mother, and he's 5 or 6, so he's like, okay, sir. But later that day, a nun from school, because remember it was a Catholic school, called the Greenlease house to see how things were going, which I think is very nice. And Virginia, his mom, answered the phone. And she was fine, and now terrified about where is her son. That would be a horrendous phone call to get. So Mr. Greenlease contacted the police and the FBI. Remember, he's white and rich, so he can just do that. But I mean, honestly, who wouldn't want to just call up the FBI when their child's been snatched? Maybe you can't. I don't know. I don't have any children to be snatched. So I don't know if I can call the FBI for that. I don't know how you call the FBI. I'm rambling. A few hours later, a ransom note came to the Greenlease household, and the peoples, I don't really know what this case, wanted $600,000 in $20 and $10 bills, which reminds me of another case we covered where they just wanted it in like gold $20 and $10 bills. But they wanted it in a duffel bag, which I don't even know if that would fit. And the $600,000 then would be about $6 million today. I can't whistle, but you get the point. And if they got the money, they promised Bobby's return in 24 hours. And then a second ransom came the next day and held Bobby's Jerusalem medal, which he would wear. Like, just probably part of his school uniform, I'm guessing. And they asked for the money again and said Bobby was fine but homesick, which I could understand. Overall, the Greenleases received over a half dozen ransom notes and 15 phone calls in like a few days. It was insane. Now Robert, the dad, remember, Bobby's dad, was so worried about his son, he held off the authorities and paid the ransom, which I feel like we've seen that a couple times in cases I've covered. I forgot which one. I think it was Marion. They paid the ransom. Like, if I pay the ransom, maybe there's a chance I could get my kid back. And I could totally understand that. But he paid the $600,000 ransom, which is the largest ransom ever paid in America until 1972. But the last communication between the Greenleases and the person or people was a telephone call at 1 a.m. on October 5th to state they had received the money and Bobby was alive and he would be home in 24 hours or less. But on October 6th, John Oliver Hager, H-A-G-E-R, hello. Could you just chill? That's really all I ask. People would like to look at you. You're cute. Our cat's weird. But on October 6th, John Oliver Hager, H-A-G-E-R, a cab driver, would call the St. Louis Police Department due to a suspicious guy he drove around. Said he had been flaunting a lot of money, and guess who just gave out over $500,000 in cash recently? I know. Did you hear her sigh? And Bobby was still not home. It had been 24 hours, he was not home. And with this tip, the police were able to find and arrest a Carl Austin Hall, who was staying at a hotel in St. Louis the night of October 6th. They arrested him October 6th as well. Now, Carl Hall would lead police to his girlfriend's house on Arsenal Street. Seems a bit ironic that her street's called Arsenal Street. But later that night, she was also arrested. And her name was Bonnie Emily Heady. Heady. And she was the woman who was, quote unquote, Bobby's aunt. She was the one who picked him up from school. Spoiler alert, not his aunt at all. But I mean, he's young. He might not know all his aunts and uncles and relatives. He's 5. But unfortunately, at her house, they discovered Bobby dead. And he was buried in a shallow grave in her backyard. Some sources said it was her front yard near her porch, and they tried planting flowers real quick over it so it wouldn't look suspicious, but I feel like that might look more suspicious, but they did. I mean, I guess silver lining, it's nice that he's been found, but he is not alive anymore. So this is pretty much, I hate to say nail in the coffin, that these people are responsible. So it turns out they were never going to return Bobby, which I guess is the case we've seen with ransoms like this. And he was killed with a .38 caliber revolver a few hours after they took him from school. Some sources said he wasn't even alive 30 minutes after they took him, which is horrible. Like, I don't get these people. You'll see why. But Carl Hall and Bonnie Heady were a couple who were drug-addicted alcoholics, so that's not good. But in the early 1930s, Carl attended Kemper Military School with Paul Robert Greenlease. Name sound familiar? Well, that's because Paul Robert Greenlease is Bobby's adopted older brother. So Robert's son from a first marriage, I'm pretty sure. It didn't confirm, but I'm guessing that's what it meant. And he stated that he planned for years to victimize his former classmates' wealthy family. Because basically, Carl Hall, he came from money. I mean, that's how he was able to go to this nice school, obviously. But when his father passed, he inherited a lot of money. But he lost it all. Just being stupid, failed business ventures, he lost all the money. And he turned to crime to make more money, which, the logical next step. Let's not get a job, let's steal it. And he would get arrested for these crimes, trying to make money. So he planned the kidnapping so he could be, quote-unquote, set for life. So he could do this one big crime, get the money. Obviously, he thought he was going to get away with it, and him and his girlfriend could live a happily ever after. He's obviously not the first one, and not the first one I've covered, where they think doing this will solve all their problems with getting that ransom money from stealing someone else's child. And I don't understand the logic. Sure, it's a lot of money, but how in your good conscience could you think this is a good idea? I don't get it. Do you, Sue? She don't get it either. I didn't see much on his girlfriend, Bonnie. It said she also came from some wealth, but I don't know for certain. I don't think it was the exact same situation as Carl, but I'm guessing she blew her money with maybe alcohol and drugs, because it said they're drug-addicted alcoholics. They seem meant for each other, personally. Love it. First snort of drugs. But they ended up both pleading guilty on October 30th, and they both appear before Judge Albert L. Reeves in federal court in Kansas City, Missouri. On November 19th, 1953, only after deliberating for an hour and 8 minutes, the jury found them both guilty and wanted the death penalty for both of them. Now, remember, only one of them technically killed Bobby. I'm pretty sure it was Carl. I couldn't find for certain. And I know in some cases they'll try to do, the one who did the killing, death penalty, and the one Like, Carl would get death penalty and Bonnie would maybe just get life in prison, but they wanted to do death penalty for them both. Now, it took this judge 15 minutes to agree and sentence them. That seems very fast. And the judge said, quote, "I think the verdict fits the evidence. It is the most cold-blooded, brutal murder I have ever tried." End quote. So on December 18th of 1953, Carl Hall and Bonnie Heady were executed together in a gas chamber. Which, remember, gas chambers are not a thing anymore. And I'm surprised they let them be executed together. Maybe you just literally killed two birds with one stone. Because I didn't think they'd be at the same prison. Because don't executions like take place at, obviously in a different area of the prison, but don't they take place at the prison? And wouldn't she be at a female prison? I don't know. But they were executed together in like the same chamber. But Hall was pronounced dead at 12:12 a.m. and Heady was pronounced dead 20 seconds later. So, if you've noticed the dates, this went very fast, because only 11 weeks and 4 days passed between the crime and their executions, which is very, very fast. But remember, Dad was rich white guy who could just call the FBI. I'm not saying that they obviously didn't deserve justice, because they did. Their baby was stolen and killed for money, but it's just how fast this went was insane. Granted, I feel like back then they weren't as split, I feel like, about the death penalty, but I could be way wrong. Bonnie Heady, is actually the third woman in the United States to ever be executed by federal authorities. Also, she is the only woman in U.S. history to be executed by gas chamber. Way go! You win the prize! You dream it, you could be it. Now, another thing they wanted to cover, I've noticed, was the ransom money. Because they were caught very fast. But only $288,000 was ever recovered. Because out of the $600,000. So where did it go? We don't really know. I obviously do not know. I meant we as like the people who do the crimes, do the crime solving. Because there's no way he could have spent it all in that time. That's insane. It was like 24 hours before they caught him. There are some theories, but the first of the cab driver who drove Hall tipped off a local mobster. I don't know what for, or if it was an accident, like if he had to pay some debt, I don't know. But the mobster was Joseph G. Costello, which kind of sounds familiar, honestly. The second theory was that Hall had hid or buried the rest of the money. Like, if he's gonna get caught, they can't have the money back. I don't know. They've searched areas. They didn't find anything in Bonnie's yard. Like, they thought maybe if Bobby was buried there, the money might be, but they've never really found any money buried or hidden anywhere. Unless, like, someone found it and they're like, heck, I'm not telling nobody, this is free money. Like, they didn't know the connection. That is very possible. I feel like that could happen. Like, if I find $20 just scuttling around in the woods, scuttling around in the woods, and no one's nearby, I'm probably going to keep that $20. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I mean, it's a possibility. We don't know what didn't happen. And the third theory, which I feel like has the most grounding? No. Which makes maybe the most sense. They thought there was two sneaky cops who took the money, and both served prison time for this, but it was never truly proven. One of the cops, I believed, died in jail, and then another one, I forgot the technical term for, they took back that verdict and they released him, because again, they didn't really have evidence. It was a weird situation. I didn't get too deep into it. But again, they still have never found this money. And unfortunately, that's pretty much the case. It's kind of cut and dry. Afterward, the Greenlease family would donate much of their wealth after this tragedy, which I think, I don't want to say wonderful, but I mean, it's really nice of them. And Robert, the dad, died in 1969 at 87 years old. And Virginia died in 2001, actually, at 92 years old. And then I remember I mentioned the daughter, Virginia, as well. She died in 1984. So I feel really bad for the mom, in particular, losing everybody before she went. And, like, that's quite a bit of time, because Robert's already being older. He obviously died before her in 69, but then losing both of your children before you just seems... I hear that's one of the hardest things in life. I mean, I obviously cannot relate because I do not have children. Is they say, like, a parent shouldn't have to bury their child. It should be the other way around. But I can't imagine both of your children going before you do, and you don't have your spouse anymore. I read that she... Philanthropist? She just kept donating money and tried to do as much good as she could up until her death. I didn't really see any specifics. The Greenlease family is now all passed at this time. Like, this immediate. I'm sure their, like, grandchildren and stuff are still alive, but the four in this situation are now all passed. As usual, I will try to leave the graves linked below if you want to learn more info about the family, or if you want to leave flowers or kind words only, please. I can link that below, as well as for my aunt's shop if you would like a nice hat, or she does a lot of pet bandanas because the holidays are coming up. But I hope you all stay safe. Make sure you know who all your aunts are. Make sure your kids know who all their aunts and uncles are, and well, see you next time. I did start research on the next one. It's probably going to take me some time. I didn't realize how infamous it was. At least not here in Michigan, but Chicago. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys. Oh, if I don't see you before then, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Right, Dinky?